You're doing everything right, and it's hollowing you out from the inside. That's the paradox no one ever warned you about. The slow suffocation that comes from a life built on shoulds instead of truths. You climbed the ladder. You made the sacrifices. You became disciplined, responsible, admirable. And somewhere in all that becoming, you lost the feeling of being alive. Now you're standing at the center of a life that looks enviable to everyone else. And you can't shake this quiet devastation that whispers, "Is this really it?" This isn't ingratitude. This isn't weakness. This is what happens when you optimize your life for performance instead of presence, for achievement instead of aliveness, for looking good instead of feeling real. You've been so consumed with building a life that others can respect that you forgot to build one you can actually inhabit. The Stoics knew this terror intimately. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He wasn't celebrating his power. He was confessing his isolation. He understood that you can conquer the world and still lose yourself. That external magnificence means nothing if you're internally hollow. You feel empty because you've been living like a language you don't speak. Every day you translate yourself into what's acceptable, what's productive, what's impressive. But translation always loses something, and what you've lost is the raw, untranslated truth of who you actually are beneath all the performance. The world taught you that emptiness means you need more success, more love, more purpose, more discipline. But emptiness isn't absence. It's presence without permission. It's your soul's way of saying, "I'm still here, suffocating under all these layers you've built to protect me." The emptiness isn't the problem, it's the alarm. And you've been hitting snooze for years. This video isn't going to hand you another system to follow or another version of yourself to become. It's going to show you what you already know, but have been too afraid to face. Because the path out of emptiness doesn't go up or forward, it goes in. If this is already speaking to something real in your life, hit that like button. Leave a comment, even just a word or two about what emptiness feels like for you. Share this with someone who's suffocating in their own success. Subscribe, because we're going to keep having the conversations that matter, not the ones that comfort. And don't skip ahead. If you're done performing and ready to feel real again, type this below. I choose presence over perfection. Number 1. You feel empty because you've mistaken witnessing your life for living it. You've become a spectator in your own existence. You're watching yourself from a distance, narrating your experiences, curating your moments, but you're not actually inside them anymore. You take the photo instead of feeling the sunset. You think about how to describe the conversation instead of being moved by it. You're constantly one step removed, observing, analyzing, documenting, but not dissolving into the raw experience itself. This is the silent epidemic nobody names. We've trained ourselves to be our own audience. Every experience gets filtered through, how does this look? What does this mean? How would I explain this? Is this worth remembering? We've become so obsessed with capturing life that we've forgotten how to be captured by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that feels almost prophetic now. Confine yourself to the present. Not because the present is always pleasant, but because it's the only place where life actually happens. He understood that the mind's tendency is to drift into memory, into planning, into judgment, into narrative. And when the mind drifts, you disappear. You become a ghost, haunting your own body. The emptiness you feel is the natural consequence of never fully landing anywhere. You're physically here, but mentally everywhere else. You're eating without tasting, talking without connecting, moving without arriving. You've replaced direct experience with meta-experience, the experience of having experiences. And meta-experience is hollow. It's like reading a menu instead of eating the meal. Social media trained us for this. It taught us to live for the moment we can show others rather than the moment itself. But this goes deeper than phones. This is about a fundamental disconnection from immediate reality. You've learned to narrate your pain instead of feel it, to perform your joy instead of surrender to it, to think about your relationships instead of being vulnerable inside them. Here's what changed. You stopped trusting raw experience. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that unexamined life wasn't worth living. So you began examining everything, analyzing your feelings, explaining your reactions, justifying your choices. But there's a difference between reflection and constant surveillance. Reflection happens after you fully lived something. Surveillance happens instead of living it. The Stoics practiced something they called fantasia, the ability to see things as they truly are without the distortion of judgment or interpretation. Not positively or negatively, just clearly. A tree is a tree. Rain is rain. Pain is pain. Joy is joy. They weren't trying to think their way into wisdom. They were trying to experience reality directly, without the interference of opinion. You can't think your way out of emptiness. You have to feel your way through it. And feeling requires you to stop commentating, to stop performing, to stop treating your life like content. It requires you to put down the invisible camera and actually taste your coffee, to stop planning what you'll say next and actually hear what's being said, to stop worrying about whether this moment matters and let yourself be swallowed by it. The richness you're craving isn't in bigger experiences. It's in deeper presence. It's in the 5 seconds where you forget yourself completely, where you're not managing your image or controlling the narrative or protecting yourself from feeling too much, where you just exist, undefended, unnarrated, alive in a way that has no words. If you're ready to stop being a spectator in your own life, drop this. I will live inside my moments. Number 2, you feel empty because you've been optimizing yourself out of existence. You've turned yourself into a project, a problem to solve, a machine to upgrade. You track your habits, measure your progress, audit your weaknesses, and strategize your improvements. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, implemented the frameworks. You've become efficient, productive, disciplined. And in all that relentless self-improvement, you've accidentally engineered the humanity right out of your own life. There's a violence in constant optimization that nobody talks about. It's the violence of never being enough as you are, of treating your natural rhythms like bugs that need fixing, of pathologizing rest, spontaneity, messiness, or any moment that doesn't serve a clear purpose. You've become so focused on becoming better that you've forgotten how to simply be. Seneca warned about this exact trap. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. He wasn't advocating recklessness. He was pointing to a profound truth that life isn't a problem waiting to be solved. It's a reality waiting to be experienced. When you're constantly in improvement mode, you're living in a perpetual state of inadequacy. You're always the before picture, never the full human being. The emptiness comes from self-abandonment. Every time you override your tiredness to hit another goal, every time you ignore your body's signals because they're inconvenient, every time you dismiss your emotions as irrational or your desires as undisciplined, you're sending yourself a message. You, as you are not acceptable. You need to be fixed before you deserve to exist freely. And here's the cruelest part. Optimization never ends. There's always another level, another weakness to eliminate, another version of yourself that's slightly better than the current one. You've created a game you can never win because the finish line moves every time you get close. So, you run faster, work harder, eliminate more, and the emptiness grows because you're running away from the only thing that could actually fill it, yourself. You've confused growth with warfare. Real growth isn't about conquering yourself. It's about understanding yourself. It's about creating space for all of you, the disciplined parts and the lazy parts, the ambitious parts and the parts that just want to sit in the sun doing nothing. The Stoics didn't practice self-discipline because they hated themselves. They practiced it because they loved wisdom more than comfort. There's a massive difference between self-improvement rooted in self-hatred and growth rooted in self-respect. Think about the language you use with yourself. I need to fix this. I should be better. Why can't I just do it? That's not a coach talking. That's a tyrant. You've installed a dictator in your own head, and you wonder why your inner world feels like a prison. The path out isn't more discipline, it's more compassion. It's learning to distinguish between growth that nourishes you and optimization that depletes you. It's asking, am I doing this because it makes me more alive, or because I'm trying to earn the right to feel okay about myself? Am I expanding, or am I just exhausting myself? You don't need another productivity system. You need permission to be human, to be contradictory, to want rest without justifying it, to have an unproductive day without spiraling into shame, to exist in your body as it is, not as you think it should be. The emptiness you feel is your soul protesting its own imprisonment. Number 3, you feel empty because you've replaced intimacy with familiarity. You're surrounded by people, but you're not actually known by anyone. Not really. You have relationships, but they exist on the surface, safe, functional, predictable. You've learned to show up in ways that maintain connection without risking exposure. You share updates, but not truths. You have conversations, but not revelations. You're close to people in proximity, but distant in soul. This is the loneliness that lives inside togetherness. It's worse than being alone because, at least alone, you know why you feel isolated. But when you're surrounded by friends, family, partners, and still feel fundamentally unseen, that's a special kind of emptiness. It makes you question your own validity. If people are here, why do I still feel so alone? Because you're not letting them in. Not really. You've built a presentation of yourself that's lovable, manageable, appropriate, and that presentation gets love. But you don't. The real you. The one with the strange thoughts, the inexplicable sadness, the petty jealousies, the fears you can't rationalize. That version stays hidden. And what's hidden can't be held. Epictetus taught his students, We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. But his deeper lesson was about presence. Real listening isn't waiting for your turn to talk. It's the vulnerable act of letting someone else's reality touch yours, of not defending, not fixing, not relating it back to yourself, just receiving them. And the reason we're all so bad at it is because we're terrified of that level of contact. If I really let you in, you might see that I don't have it all figured out either. So we perform proximity. We do activities together and call it bonding. We exchange information and call it intimacy. We maintain relationships through consistency and call it connection. But none of that touches the emptiness, because the emptiness isn't about being alone. It's about being unknown. You've trained the people in your life to stay at a certain distance. You've shown them which topics are safe, which emotions are acceptable, which versions of you they're allowed to see. And they've learned. They don't ask the deeper questions anymore because you've taught them not to. They don't push past your "I'm fine" because you've made it clear that's where the door closes. And here's what's devastating. You're doing the same thing to them. You're accepting their performance too. You're letting them stay on the surface because if they go deep, you'll have to go deep. And going deep is terrifying. It means admitting you don't know what you're doing. It means crying in front of someone. It means saying, "I'm struggling," without packaging it in a lesson learned. It means being messy, needy, irrational, human. The Stoics valued self-sufficiency, yes, but they also understood something modern culture forgets. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean isolation. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly about his teachers, his friends, the people who shaped him. He knew that strength isn't about needing no one. It's about being strong enough to be vulnerable with the right people. You're empty because you're carrying everything alone, not because you have to, but because you've decided that being strong means being independent, that needing is weakness, that showing your full self is dangerous. So you fragment yourself. You give pieces to different people. The funny side here, the professional side there, the struggling side to no one. And no single person knows the whole of you. What would it cost you to be fully seen? To let someone witness your confusion, your pettiness, your fear, your weird hope that probably won't work out? To stop curating and start revealing? The emptiness you feel is the cost of protection. You've made yourself safe from rejection by making yourself unavailable for real connection. If you're ready to let someone truly know you, right, I will risk being seen. Number 4, you feel empty because you've been living in preparation instead of participation. You're always getting ready to start, getting ready to be happy, getting ready to live fully once you've handled just a few more things. You tell yourself, once I'm more secure, once I'm more healed, once I'm more certain, once I'm more worthy, then I'll really show up. Then I'll take the risk. Then I'll say what I mean. Then I'll stop holding back. But that moment never comes because ready is a mirage that moves with you. You cross the threshold you thought would change everything, and immediately your mind creates a new one. You'll get the financial security, and suddenly, you need more certainty about the relationship. You heal one wound, and suddenly, you're aware of another. You're never quite there, never quite enough, never quite safe enough to fully participate in your own life. This is the emptiness of perpetual rehearsal. You're practicing for a performance that never happens. You're warming up for a game that's already in the fourth quarter. You're preparing to live while your actual life passes by unlived. And the tragedy is, you think you're being responsible. You think you're being smart. You think once you get everything in order, then you'll really begin. Seneca saw this clearly. We are always complaining that our days are few and acting as though there would be no end to them. He watched people postpone joy, postpone meaning, postpone full engagement. Not because they didn't have time, but because they were waiting for permission that would never come. They were waiting to feel ready for something that doesn't require readiness. It requires willingness. The emptiness you feel is the accumulation of all the moments you didn't fully inhabit because you were too busy preparing for the next one. All the conversations you half listened to while planning your response. All the experiences you documented instead of absorbed. All the feelings you postponed because you didn't have time to process them properly. All the risks you didn't take because you needed just a little more certainty first. You've confused preparation with protection. You think if you can just get everything aligned, the right mindset, the right resources, the right conditions, then you'll be safe enough to really live. But life doesn't wait for your permission. It's happening now. And every moment you spend preparing is a moment you're not participating. Here's the truth that might hurt. You're not actually preparing. You're procrastinating. You're using "not ready yet" as a socially acceptable way to avoid the terror of being fully alive. Because being fully alive means being fully vulnerable. It means trying things that might not work, saying things that might be rejected, feeling things that might overwhelm you, wanting things you might not get. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst that could happen. Not to terrify themselves, but to realize they could handle it. They weren't trying to control outcomes. They were trying to free themselves from the paralysis of perfectionism. They understood that waiting for the perfect moment is just another way of hiding. What are you waiting for? Really? Strip away the reasonable-sounding excuses and ask yourself, what permission am I waiting for that I could give myself right now? What conversation am I postponing? What desire am I suppressing? What version of myself am I keeping locked away until conditions improve? The emptiness isn't because your life lacks something. It's because you're lacking from your life. You're the ghost at your own table, the observer of your own days, the understudy who never takes the stage. You're so busy preparing to be someone that you're not being anyone. Participation doesn't mean recklessness. It doesn't mean abandoning wisdom or throwing caution away. It means showing up with your full chest, even when you're uncertain. It means speaking even when your voice shakes. It means loving even when you might get hurt. It means living like someone who knows they're going to die. Not someday, but specifically, inevitably. Maybe sooner than you think. If you're done rehearsing and ready to show up, say, I participate in my life now. Number 5. You feel empty because you've been medicating the symptoms instead of listening to the message. You know the drill. The emptiness surfaces, and immediately you reach for the fix. You work harder, scroll longer, plan another trip, start another project, buy something new, make another change. You treat the emptiness like a problem to eliminate rather than information to receive. And so you spend your life running from the one feeling that's actually trying to save you. Emptiness isn't a malfunction, it's a messenger. It's your system's way of telling you that something fundamental is misaligned, that you're living in a way that betrays what matters to you, that the life you've constructed doesn't match the life you actually need. But instead of listening, you panic. Instead of sitting with it, you solve it. Instead of letting it speak, you silence it. This is the modern disease. We've pathologized discomfort. We've been taught that any negative feeling is a problem requiring immediate resolution. Sad? Fix it. Anxious? Manage it. Empty? Fill it. We've lost the ability to be with our own internal weather without treating every storm like an emergency. Marcus Aurelius understood something we've forgotten. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't talking about positive thinking. He was talking about sovereignty, about the ability to be with what is without immediately needing to change it, to feel emptiness without frantically stuffing it with noise, achievement, or distraction. The emptiness you feel isn't asking to be filled. It's asking to be heard. It's telling you that the life you're living doesn't have room for the person you actually are, that you've outgrown the story you've been telling yourself, that the values you thought were yours were actually borrowed, that the dreams you're chasing don't actually excite you anymore, that you've been saying yes to things that deserve a no, and no to things that deserve your whole heart. But you can't hear any of that if you're constantly drowning it out. You can't receive the message if you're too busy medicating. And so you cycle. You feel empty. You fix it temporarily. The emptiness returns. You fix it again. You never actually change anything because you're treating the smoke instead of finding the fire. Here's what's radical. What if you stopped trying to fix it? What if you sat with the emptiness and asked it what it wants? Not what you want from it, what it wants from you, what it's trying to protect you from, what it's trying to guide you toward. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The emptiness is happening. Your reaction has been to fight it, escape it, or shame yourself for feeling it. What if your reaction was curiosity instead? What if you treated it like a friend who shows up uninvited but always tells you something true? The emptiness might be telling you that your relationships are transactional, not nourishing. That your work feels meaningless because you've disconnected it from any sense of contribution. That you're living someone else's definition of success. That you've abandoned the parts of yourself that don't fit the image. That you're safe, but not alive. That you're comfortable, but not engaged. That you've traded your wildness for approval. You won't know until you listen. And listening requires stillness. It requires turning off the noise. It requires sitting in your own company, without distraction, without agenda, without the compulsion to immediately feel better. It requires trusting that the discomfort has intelligence, that your pain is not random, that emptiness is the space where transformation begins, if you're brave enough not to fill it prematurely. The Stoics didn't pursue comfort. They pursued clarity. They knew that truth often arrives dressed as discomfort, that growth lives on the other side of what you'd rather not feel, that the path to peace isn't around the difficult emotions, it's through them. Stop medicating. Start listening. The emptiness you've been running from might be the only thing honest enough to tell you what your life is actually missing. If you're finally ready to listen to what your emptiness is telling you, type, "I trust what I feel." So here you are. Still empty, maybe, but differently empty now. Because now you know the emptiness isn't your enemy. It's not evidence that you're broken or ungrateful or doing life wrong. It's evidence that you're alive enough to notice when something essential is missing, that your soul hasn't given up on you yet, that underneath all the performance and preparation and protection, there's still something in you that refuses to settle for a life that looks right but feels hollow. The emptiness you feel in the middle of your perfect life is your truth trying to break through. It's the part of you that knows you're capable of more than going through motions, more than performing, more than surviving in comfort. It's calling you back to presence, to intimacy, to participation, to the raw, unmedicated experience of being human. You don't fix this overnight. You don't fix it at all, really. You listen to it. You honor it. You stop treating your life like a problem to optimize and start treating it like a reality to inhabit. You stop watching from the outside and step back into your own skin. You stop preparing and start participating. You stop medicating and start listening. The Stoics knew that the good life isn't about having everything. It's about being present for anything. It's about meeting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. It's about finding freedom not in perfect circumstances, but in how you show up to imperfect ones. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They weren't preaching detachment from life. They were teaching full engagement with it, minus the delusion that you can control outcomes. Your emptiness is asking you to come home, to yourself, to this moment, to the life you're actually living instead of the one you're endlessly preparing for. It's asking you to be known, not just impressive, to be present, not just productive, to be human, not just optimized. And maybe that terrifies you. Maybe the thought of being that real, that vulnerable, that undefended feels like too much. But consider this. The alternative is what you've been doing, and it's left you here, reading this, looking for something that will finally make sense of the ache. You already know what needs to change. The emptiness has been telling you all along. The question is, are you finally ready to listen? If this video touched something real in you, hit that like button. Leave a comment below. Tell me which part hit hardest, or just tell me you're here, trying. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in feeling this way. And subscribe, because we're going to keep going deeper into what it means to be alive, not just successful. If this reached you where it matters, leave this below. I am alive, and that's enough.